2024 is set to be the hottest year on record, according to the World Meteorological Organizations. Countries across the world are building their clean energy capacity, shifting carbon-intensive sectors to green processes. This transition is critical to reduce emissions, protect the environment, reduce climate disasters. The promise of a clean future should be exciting for everyone. But is it? The migration story is in Baku, Azerbaijan, where COP29 is underway. Several discussions are underway on green skills, labor force preparedness for a green future. But trade unions and worker rights campaigners fear a transition to green could leave many workers in traditional jobs behind, trigger unsafe migration.
There is a problem, especially for Global South, where we have not enough political will of our government to involve the workers in the discussion of climate action. And another part, you have a lack of skills, lack of knowledge, and the involvement of the workers in that discussion. And we can say, if we continue like that, if we are not act today, we have a risk that in the future we can be out of all the climate action, especially in just transition. The fear, we can say, it can be in imagination or reality, but because many, even the companies, some governments manipulated the people on that, and we need to know exactly the exact information, the real information, and what we are going to do. And if not, and the workers we can increase the fear about the green job, and if they have fear about their future, their sustainability of that green job, they risk to lose their livelihoods. So we don't know what happened. That's why we say in the Global South they are trying to move by immigration, by illegal, sometimes by legal immigration, to move for another world where they're supposed to be the paradise. But me as an African, I say no. I think there's some expectation, but the expectation is the fact now we need to sit as a workers, as a people, and to understand what is the challenge, to understand what is the risk if you are not decide ourselves today what we want in terms of the transition.
Yeah. A great majority of people do not migrate across borders. Much larger numbers migrate within countries. An estimated 740 million internal migrants in 2009. But the estimated number of international migrants has increased over the past 5 decades. More than 40% of all international migrants worldwide in 2020 were born in Asia. The largest country of origin of international migrants was India. As demand for green skills grows, the demand for a green-skilled workforce is expanding. And this means far greater labor movement across borders.
We need to make sure that migrant workers are in decent jobs. All workers are in decent jobs, actually, but in this discussion particularly, that migrant workers are in decent jobs. Now, why is this a concern, perhaps, in the green sector? Unfortunately, we do see that a green job is not necessarily or inherently a decent job. Sometimes, the example I often use actually is the example of someone who's working in the recycling sector. I mean, the recycling sector is essential for circular economies, for reducing carbon emissions related to production and so on. But when you think about it, a lot of these jobs are actually kind of like waste pickers or waste sorters. These are exactly the kind of low status, low paid, often quite informal jobs that migrant workers end up doing, because national workers, for whatever reason, and I don't mean to make any judgment when I say they don't want to do it, but they don't want to do it. So you can imagine that there's a lot of decent work deficits there. So there is really, there are definitely opportunities whereby we could see how labor migration could help fill skills gaps if it's done in a very sort of targeted and strategic way, if there is respect for the rights of all migrant workers involved in this, and we also really would focus on the important role of social dialogue in this process, and not just in countries of destination, but also in countries of origin. What do I mean by that? Well, I think it's really important to, when we look at this movement, to look at also the question of international equity.
So what can be done to make migrant workers safe?
There are not enough people with skills for green jobs anywhere in the world. We need to focus on building up the skills systems to make sure that there are enough of these people, and that they have a choice, that they can have a decent green job at home and a decent green job abroad. And in order to do that, we need employers and workers and governments around the table, so that we are building systems that work for everyone. It's happening at the same time as a huge demographic shift around the world, most advanced in Europe, fastest probably in Asia, but happening absolutely everywhere, which means we're moving to more aged societies and a really important need in the future for care workers. Now, this is work that has been historically under-recognized, underpaid, very very informal employment in this sector, and a lot, unfortunately, of exploitation and abuse, and it's mostly carried out by women. And when it comes to specific migration discussions, there often aren't regular pathways for care workers to move, even though we all know that they're actually, in many ways, going to be very, very important in the future.
The migration story.